Hi everyone, Lydia here with the Build Show Network, and today we're going to talk texture. So, depending on where you live, what area you are, you either loathe the texture or it is everywhere that you go. I definitely found it to be more regional. So like the Northeast, smooth walls, plaster is still really popular there. You start heading west, especially into the Northwest, you run into texture everywhere, and also the Southwest. So we have a couple very popular textures that we do here. I'll kind of run you through a couple of them, but I also want to touch first on what it is here that I'm holding. So something that we do as drywallers and when we're working with clients is make sample boards. So you can buy these pre-cut half-inch boards actually at Home Depot, Lowe's, any kind of local hardware place, and they're just USG half-inch sheetrock, and they come pre-cut like this, so you can use them for patches or sample boards like I have here. So sample boards are really important, especially when you're dealing with textures, because it gives the client options. Not only that, but they can paint it and they can carry it around their house. They can see what it looks like in different lightings. And it also gives you security because they need to sign off on this. Something we've started to do, and something that also covers your end, is you give them options. They pick, they sign the back of the board, and then you can leave it on the job site so that you can have a reference point to where you're working through the project. That way there's no communication issues, everybody's on the same page. If there is a problem, then you can bring back up the sample board and it has the signature and there will be no problems there. So that helps a lot. These are also great too for paint samples. If you just need to see what a paint color looks like, sample boards are awesome. You can also keep them, like you have a big stack, and then just bring them to clients' houses, and then they can also pick and choose through there. So getting into the textures, this first one is a swirl. So this is about 85% of what we do here. This is a heavier example so we can pick it up on the camera, but it's essentially just a pull trowel done in figure eights with mud, and then it creates like a swirly pattern. It's actually a pretty old texture, goes all the way back to the plaster days, so it's not new, it's just been modernized because when we install it or when we texture it, we're spraying with a speed flow, a big heavy duty texture, and then there's a big crew of us and we go through and swirl with pull trowels. So very, very, very popular here, especially with new construction. This is where everything's going right now. This would be a Stomp knockdown. So depending on where you live, if heavier textures are very popular, you probably have a Stomp knockdown on your ceiling or your walls. This is achieved with using a crow's foot brush. I'll show you guys what that looks like later. It is, you just essentially stomp it. I guess that's the best way to explain it. You literally stomp with the brush up and down on the board. You can roll or spray the mud on, and then you let it sit up for a little bit, and then you come and lay the texture down with a knife. You don't have to lay it down. It looks very aggressive if you don't. So I would say Stomp knockdown is the more popular choice of what people like to do. This is a pretty good example of a Stomp knockdown. You've got some texture, you've got some of those brush marks in there, and it's just kind of pitty, and that's just kind of, that's Stomp for you. Next up, this one is very, very, very popular, almost as popular as Swirl, but it takes a lot of time, so it gets a price increase. But this would be like a faux plaster, wholly smooth walls, kind of what people call it sometimes, but we like to call it just kind of like a faux plaster look, old world. Essentially what you do is you just put the mud on and leave little spaces, and then you wind up having these little tiny cat eyes. So from far away it looks smooth, and most of the time you can't actually see the texture until you're right up on it. So it's a nice choice for people that are kind of wanting a little bit of a texture, maybe can't afford a smooth wall, but they still kind of want that look, or they like a little bit of kind of like an old world modern, it's kind of like an old world modern. We do this a lot in modern houses, so it's just a really, really nice texture. It's personally probably one of my favorites. It looks very nice, and it looks very smooth, and you can actually kind of burn the mud a little bit sometimes and really get it super sweet. But this would be our faux plaster, old world, wholly smooth wall look right here. This one is a skip trowel. Really popular, I would say more like down south maybe, kind of like Arizona, California. There's a California skip, which is very patterny. We like to keep ours not so patterny, a little more organic, but essentially you're just skipping the knife over the board and then it creates this texture. We did pretty heavy here. Some people love it heavy. Some people like it a lot lighter. You can kind of get it smooth, like that wholly smooth wall that I just showed you. You can get it real flat too, and it can be very nice. It's very fast. That's why it's popular, especially with people that want a hand texture, but you need to move, because you can get really big blades and then just skip and go. Like you can do a lot of footage very quickly with this texture. I would say it's more popular and a little more rustic, or it's just got a lot of texture to it. So it is kind of one you kind of have to, you know, increase probably your paint cost because you have so much texture to fill in and so much unevenness on the board. And then this one's just kind of a little bit rougher of the Holy Smooth Wall. You can go a lot thicker with this. We've done a lot of these in like mountain style or kind of lodge-like houses where they want that a little bit more than that Holy Smooth Wall or that plaster finish. They want like a more aggressive, but not super aggressive as the skip. So this one's kind of a nice in between. You get a little more depth, a little more texture, but then you're not going quite so far as the skip trowel or the stomp as the aggressiveness. But this one also is very popular here. And really all 5 of these textures are things that we do throughout the year. And it's really nice to give clients options, to have boards, and to give them the opportunity to pick. Also, it's a good chance for you to upsell. So, you know, if they're wanting to do maybe one texture and you'd like to have them do another texture, that's also a good plan too, because you can have different price increases for different looks. And of course, we also need to get compensated for our time. Some of these are way more time consuming than other ones, but they're all fun and texture is huge here. So that's it for me this week. And I hope you guys loved this episode, even though you don't love texture, perhaps on where you live. And you guys can catch me next week for a whole new video all about drywall. You can catch me on socials. I'm under Drywall Shorty on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Have a great week, guys.